Apple just launched a new leasing program in the US called Apple Upgrade, and it replaces the iPhone upgrade program that existed before because now you can not only lease an iPhone instead of buying it outright, but other Apple devices as well. This program runs in partnership with Klarna, and the obvious question everybody is probably asking is simple: is it actually worth it? And the honest answer is that just kind of depends on what you care about, but for a lot of people, it might land a little bit better than you would expect. Now, of course, none of this is financial advice. Always live within your means. Be comfortable with the payments that you might be able to accept and make and all of that. So just wanted to get that out of the way. And before we get into the scenario of what it might cost and whether it's worth it for leasing an iPhone, it's worth mentioning again that this isn't just an iPhone thing. Apple Upgrade also covers iPad, Mac, and Apple Watch, so you can pretty much lease yourself across the entire ecosystem. iPhones start at about $18 a month, and the Apple Watch starts even lower, around $12 a month. Though the terms differ by product, so with iPhones and watches, those run on a 24-month plan, and iPads and Macs are stretched out over 36 months. For this video, though, I'm going to keep it simple and focus on the iPhone, because that's probably going to be the product that is most heavily leased here. So, to keep this clean, I'm using one phone as our example the whole way through. The iPhone 17 Pro with 256 gigs of storage. If you were to buy that outright, that phone is $1,100. Through Apple Upgrade, you can lease it for roughly $46 a month over 12 months. Now, the important part is that leasing doesn't just mean paying it off in installments. At the end of your 12 months, you have to pick one of the three paths, and which one you pick changes the entire math here. You can hand the phone back and walk away. You can give it back and roll straight into a newer iPhone, or you can buy the thing outright by paying whatever's left of the retail price. So let's start with just returning it. If you lease that iPhone 17 Pro for a year and then decide to give it back, you've spent roughly $550 total. And that's genuinely less, obviously, than the $1,100 that you'd have to have had paid on your own if you bought the whole thing outright. On the surface, sounds like a steal. Half the price for a year with the latest Pro. But here's the catch, and kind of the whole catch of leasing in general. At the end of it, you've got nothing to show for it. You don't have a phone, you can't sell it, you can't trade it in, you just got nothing. And that matters because when you buy a phone outright, that phone still has resale value. If you bought the iPhone 17 Pro and sold it privately after a year for something in the range of $650, your actual cost of owning it for that year drops below what the lease would have cost you. So the lease looks cheaper up front, but the resale value that you're giving up, and especially in a good resale scenario, it very much closes the gap there. And this is really the key thing to understand about the whole program. That $550 lease is about half the price of the phone, which means Apple is betting that a one-year-old iPhone 17 Pro is worth more than half of what it's sold for. Given how well iPhones hold their value, that's a bet that Apple is smartly, very comfortably making. For a sense of scale, Apple's own trade-in program right now will give you around $560 for an iPhone 16 Pro. And that phone's close to pushing 2 years old. So Apple knows exactly what these things are worth on the back end, and they've priced the lease out so that the math works in their favor. And that's not some scandal, that's just how leasing works and how companies make money on it. And this is not just for phones, but cars, etc., anything that you're going to lease. You're paying for the use, and somebody else gets to keep the asset. The part is obvious, but it's still worth mentioning in case you never leased anything before. Now, the second path, upgrading every year, which is really who this program is kind of built for, if you lease the 17 Pro this year and then hand it back and jump into the 18 Pro, next year's iPhone at a similarly monthly price, you're basically running that $550 a year cycle over and over. Over 2 years, that adds up to roughly $1,100 in payments, and you still own nothing in the end. Compare that to buying two phones outright and reselling each one, and if resale treats you well, buying and flipping still comes out ahead. So if your only goal is spending the least amount of money possible, this is not the way to do it, because buying outright and selling your old phone yourself almost always wins. But this is where I actually kind of understand why most people don't want to do that, because you don't want to run an eBay store every September. They don't want to deal with lowball offers on Facebook Marketplace, or honestly, I would use Swappa, but it's been a while since I've been there and who knows how that is. But everywhere is going to have fees, and you have to pack it up and ship it and pay for all that yourself. And if you run into trouble, anything happens to the phone, it gets broken, it's almost always going to come back to you, and then you're out. You pay a predictable monthly amount with the Apple Upgrade, and when you want the new one, you hand the old one back and you walk out with the latest model. You're paying a small premium for convenience and predictability, but for a lot of people, that trade is not completely unreasonable. And I totally understand. I actually used to do that before I started reviewing these devices every year. Not everything has to be the theoretically optimal financial move, because sometimes people just want what's easiest. And then there's the third path, which might be a sleeper option here. If you lease the phone and then decide to just buy it outright at the end, the final payment is simply the retail price minus everything you've already paid. Add it all up and you land right back at that $1,100 sticker price. Not a dollar more, which means if you go this route, Apple Upgrade quietly turns into a 12-month interest-free payment plan on your iPhone. You spread the cost out over a year, you pay zero interest, and then you get to keep the phone after you pay the remaining cost. For anyone who is going to buy the phone anyway and would rather not drop $1,100 in one shot, that's a genuinely good deal with basically no downside. One other thing worth mentioning here is if you really need new devices for work or school or whatever the case may be, and you can't spend almost $3,000 to $4,000 all in one go, you could lease an entire Apple ecosystem here. And it definitely removes the sticker shock for upgrading all at once. If you lease an iPhone 17 Pro, an Apple Watch Series 11, and a MacBook Pro, the monthly payment would be roughly $86 a month, which is a much easier theoretical pill to swallow than spending almost $4,000 at one time. Now, I'm not giving financial advice here, obviously. Again, be comfortable and able to make the payments for the devices that fit your budget and your needs, but it's definitely not an awful option if you need these things right now for work or school and you need them and you can't afford the whole cost up front. That is why a lot of this stuff exists. So is it worth it? If you're the type who buys a phone, keeps it for years and squeezes every dollar out of it, then no, just buy it outright if you can. You'll always come out ahead in the long run. But if you love having the newest iPhone every single year and you hate the hassle of reselling, then yeah, the convenience is worth the small premium, as long as the monthly, again, fits your budget. And if you want to finance a phone you were already going to buy, the buyout option is the quiet winner because it costs you nothing extra and you don't have to spend it all up front. Now, one thing to keep in mind, since this is a lease, take care of the phone because heading back with something that's cracked or damaged and have heavy wear could come back to bite you in the end, and there is no Apple Care Plus included. You would need to add that separately, which I would recommend looking into as well, especially on some of the higher end devices. Of course, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you planning to utilize this program? This is going to be really helpful for some of those who might want to try Apple's upcoming foldable, the iPhone Ultra, this September, which could retail for well over $2,000, maybe even close to $3,000 for some configurations. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. This has been with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you around in the next video.